One of the things I love to see within the film industry is originality, and this can apply to games, shows, and practically every other medium as well. And it seems that with many of the games and movies that come out these days, there's practically no originality to be found. Annual franchises have plagued both industries, and profits have been prioritized over creating something of high quality. This is really disheartening, and though some studios continue to pump out amazing pieces of art that are both clearly innovative, enjoyable, and unique, there is a third side to this story. Because you also have the films that are unique, but with a quality that no sane person can analyze. But that's why I'm here. Remember that I said no sane person. Since I'm criminally insane, I can easily review these movies. And one of the most defining examples of these types of films I've stumbled upon is none other than the 1984 comedy and horror anthology film, Tales of the Third Dimension. Created by the American film studio Earl Owensby Studios, Tales was something that has been done before, but in a format that breeds originality itself. There are many examples of these different Tales films that combine a multitude of different stories into one film or into a TV series. I've never watched any of these though, so this was entirely uncharted territory for me. I first found out about this movie through a freak accident in which I wanted to research a terrible game that I was considering doing an episode of Why Does This Game Exist on. Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is an awful game that I was looking into for that episode. I researched the actors of the game first and found that the main male character of the game was actually in another film called Visions of Sugar Plums. I won't say much about that movie here though, since it's a completely separate mess, but when I looked up the movie and tried to watch part of it online to get a taste of what the heck I was getting myself into, I instead found something very different with the same name. It was the story of two kids going to their grandma's house for Christmas, and things got very crazy. I watched about 20 minutes of it and then had to find out where the hell it came from because it was the opportunity of a lifetime. I just thought it looked so insane, so bonkers, so absolutely ludicrous that I had to check it out. And that's exactly what I did. Do I regret it? Not one bit. Let me begin by saying that this movie is split up into 3 separate chapters, all of which have a quick segment in this graveyard with the skeleton that is very verbose, dapper, and ominous, known as Igor, before the chapter starts.
My name is...
What? My name is...
Igor.
These graveyard scenes are immediately hilarious, with these birds surrounding the walls of the graveyard being a fantastic parody of the Three Stooges. And after a short while, we jump straight into the first story. This part concerns an adoption agency which is headed by a woman and a man. They drive out to a large, spooky house in order to interview the inhabitants to see if they're eligible for adoption. So not too bad of a premise, but it immediately gets a lot more interesting when you realize that the parental candidates are vampires. Now, I love me some vampires, as you can tell from the hour I spent talking about Dracula movies. So this really caught my interest. It's a great story that ends with the kid being brought to them.
Fluffy pillows.
You've got to be kidding me. But it turns out the kid was a werewolf, and he kills the vampires. And then it's also revealed that he's the son of the man working for the adoption agency. What a great twist. Honestly, this is a really phenomenal start to this movie that I found to be entertaining. We then move on to the second story, though, which is sadly nowhere near as compelling. It follows a humble, kind gravedigger named Nigel, who has 2 friends named Charlie and Freddie. Both of his friends seem alright at first, but once they learn of the burial of a rich woman with her expensive jewelry still on the corpse, they rob her grave and steal it. Now here's the thing. This beginning is actually really promising. The message Charlie is trying to show is that her riches are no longer serving any purpose since she's dead, so what going to the common, poorer person who needs it afterwards is just. I actually do see where he's coming from. Of course, robbing a grave is pretty messed up, but he does make a good point at first.
Justice to it, too. Tell me, why should these rich folks carry their wealth to the grave with them? Why not share it with those of us who aren't quite as fortunate as them?
You know, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But then, it gets bad. He learns of a crypt slash catacomb or something that supposedly has very expensive treasures or something that he wants in it. So he interrogates Nigel about it. Nigel refuses to tell him until he's choked to death. But then, like a complete bumbling idiot, Nigel tells him with his last breath, "Now it's a lose-lose. You died and gave it away." So they go into the catacombs. Freddy's trapped and Charlie leaves him to die, and eventually Charlie has a super lame death where a bunch of rats scare him to death? I honestly can't tell, it's extremely stupid. And then Nigel is back alive somehow, laughing about their misfortune, and this is really dumb too, but it does ease my worries about his kittens, because otherwise they'd have no owner and they'd have to starve, and that's just awful. We then move to the final story, the one that began my journey in the first place. Visions of Sugar Plums might just be one of the greatest things I've seen in my life. It's so absolutely ridiculous and idiotic, but still done elegantly. It feels like it could have been completely awful, but ends up being absolutely exceptional. The story follows two kids who are going to their grandma's house for the time around Christmas until their parents get back from a trip to Hawaii. And the opening scene itself is absolutely a piece of art. The young boy annoys his father and gets a beating. This is really disturbing and scary, and with the music, it's even worse. But then a few minutes later, they get to the house with this super upbeat and happy music playing. Like, what? I also love how the mother says it's Christmas to stop the beating, as if it's okay at any other time of the year. But once they get to the grandma's house, the insanity continues. The grandma runs out of pills and goes insane. We get this crazy scene of her going insane with, once again, the scariest possible music, and then another relaxed scene immediately after. It's so jarring, but in a very funny way. The scene where she gives everyone weird slop for breakfast and then gives some to her dead husband is some amazing dark comedy and is pulled off very well. And the comedy just gets better and better. I especially adore the part where she suddenly starts talking to her granddaughter like an adult about sports teams and whatnot. Because it comes completely out of the blue.
How about them Dallas Cowboys? What a team. What a team.
And I also love the scene where she asks her what she's learning in school and then proceeds to cough and ram her wheelchair all over the place as the little girl just keeps talking as if nothing's wrong.
I especially like art. Sometimes you can paint. On Thanksgiving, I made a turkey out of a paper bag. Maybe you like to see some pictures. Oh boy, I sure didn't like that part when we had chase that government pincher, and, keep it away from the cat, and, here's Santa Claus in front of the Christmas tree.
Eventually, though, the grandma completely loses it and takes a gun to the children and tries to kill them. This is one of the most shocking things possible, and it's nothing short of hilarious. She somehow misses every shot. What is she, a stormtrooper? And the kids try to survive. It's horrifying, but also hilarious, and I love that. And the little boy even finds the cat who previously was lost as a meal in the fridge. Not many movies have the courage to do something crazy and bold like this, so I really love everything about this last story.
I'll be out in a minute.
How about a little snack?
I will spoil absolutely nothing else, because this movie must be experienced by everyone on the planet due to how insane and wonderfully weird it is. Watch the first chapter if you want a legitimately good story, skip the second part, and then watch the third chapter no matter what is my personal suggestion. Or just watch the third, it's really the star of the show. It may fumble things in the middle, but Tales of the Third Dimension is truly unique and demented in the best ways. I'll give this movie a solid 3.5 out of 5. The first chapter is probably a 4, the second is a 1.5, yeah, it's really bad, and the final one is for sure a 5. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Make sure to check out this movie, it's available on YouTube so it's completely free, and make sure to check out the TGP Awards 2021, coming tomorrow.